Hello everyone. Hello everyone. Hello everyone. So that's that part of the streaming that I'll probably have to try and edit out after all this. If anybody can say something just to make sure that you can hear me and see me. Hey, Philip Park. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Okay, cool. Okay, so time to go. Okay, so here we go. So welcome to my portfolio review. This is a portfolio review that I'm doing for the Lightbox Expo of this year, 2020 September. And hi, Lee Oscar Meyer. So I'm very happy to see you guys here. It's very weird to be in these times, to be presenting online. I'm kind of nervous because I'm not used to do it, but at the same time, I'm very excited. So thank you for all the portfolio you guys sent me. I was actually a little traumatized because over the last 2 days, I received more than 200 portfolios. I had no idea that it was going to be something that was going to be so needed, that is something that is very, that is so important for students, to have feedback. I mean, I've done many portfolio reviews when I did some presentation for Nomon and for other presentations as well, Massive Black and a bunch of others. So it's something that I'm kind of used to do. So I apologize already in advance for how many people I'm going to be able to do a presentation for. Of course, I can only take so many. This is a 1 hour presentation. It just started at 1. It'll finish at 2. So I'm going to try and relax. Well, the video isn't working. Yeah, no, I think video is working. So, yeah, it seems to be working. Yeah. So, okay, great. Thanks, Philip. It's good I have feedback. So, yeah, so right now we're 46 viewers. I'm looking forward to give a little bit of knowledge. I don't know if that'll be useful. Hopefully it'll be useful. So first of all, I want to talk about the fact that everybody that sent me their portfolio, I want to thank them for being very courageous. I mean, this is live. It's going to be streaming and it will be saved and recorded. So I know that as a student, it may be maybe a little impressive. I don't know how many people who are going to view this, but it may be kind of a little terrifying, maybe to send a portfolio. But I'm not going to be too mean. I promise. I'm going to be as friendly as I can. So here you go. So thank you for being here. And I hope you guys will enjoy all this. So first of all, I want to talk about something when it comes to artists, and especially young artists, the art world is not necessarily the easiest industry to get in. It's not necessarily the easiest industry to make money with, it's not necessarily the most long-lasting industry because there's so many people nowadays that want to be artists and things like that. And as artists, you have to accept the fact that you'll be working very hard, many hours, and many more hours than many other jobs, but you won't be paid as much. So as painful as it is as a truth, it is the reality. This comes as well with difficult times that you may encounter as an artist. And sometimes it can lead to burnout, depression, and things like that. So I want to say how important it is to take care of your mind as much as to take care of your art and your life. Having faced myself burnout and depression and things like that, the only thing I want to say is that you really need to take care of yourself. And when this happens, go see a therapist, go see a professional, whatever may help you. Anyway, so that's out of the way. I know that there's a lot of students and young artists that are here, so that's a message I've always wanted to share, and so I'm really happy that I can share it today. Okay, so also the other thing is that because we're in COVID time, you may hear my girls in the background coming in and out of the bedroom. They may storm in here. I haven't blocked the door. So I just wanted to say hi, everybody. My goodness, there's many people. So yeah, so that could happen as well. There may be a storming into the room, So, okay, let's start. So the reason why I'm starting with that image is because very often, as artists, we have kind of like an identity crisis. Who am I? What do I want to do, especially as a student? Not knowing where you're trying to go is okay. This is my daughter in the background. Hey, honey. Honey? The girls are in the bedroom. Sorry, guys. Can you guys get out of the bedroom? Thank you. Anyway, so yeah, and that crisis of identity is very clear when you're young, because obviously you don't necessarily know as much about this industry, about the world in general, and things like that. So, so it's very important to understand what is the realm of art, And here, this is a triangle that I always love, even when I'm asked to do projects, art direction, and things like that, or directing and things like that. I always ask the people, what type of project are you doing? Exactly, quarantine life. That's exactly right. So the question is, no. So someone says, that's the advice. You get to work hard and burn out by the industry for little money, so get a therapist. That's not exactly what I mean. What I mean is that it is kind of a tough industry to be in, and there are pressures, whether financial, family, or things like that. For example, when I grew up as an artist, the art world was not as developed, and my parents were not as supportive as parents may be nowadays. So I would say that it's important to think about your mind balance, because some of you may one day face that kind of issues. Anyway, I'm not gonna go too far into detail of this, because it's a whole other discussion, and that's something that would take hours. So here we go. So this is the triangle of what I consider the realm of art. Here in the abstract world, we can have like basic shapes and very like modern abstract paintings, if you want. Some people are very against modern painting and things like that, like the white square on a black background or black square. But that's a fact of art. Abstraction does exist, so deal with it. On the other side, on the top, you have stylization. So in that realm of stylization, you can have things like Mickey Mouse or Donald, or like a lot of the Pixar movies, although the Pixar movies are maybe less in the stylized realm now, and maybe they're more in the realistic realm, So maybe Pixar is around here, and this is really subjective, This is what I think, but I may be wrong, And then we could maybe do something more precise than that, Maybe Pixar moves more and more into that realm, and then from that realm. And then abstraction, like I say, is just shapes, whether it's a triangle, whether it's a square, circle, these are geometric abstraction. And then the realistic realm, of course, we have, here we'll have live action. Okay, or whatever, photography, or something like that. So that's exactly right, Sophia Nelson. Thank you. You cannot make the industry not competitive. This is just the industry that we have. But take care of yourself. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Sophia, for standing up for me. So, okay, so let's start. So out of the more than 200 portfolios I received over the last 2 days, I picked the first ones. The first ones that contacted me because I think that's a fair thing to do. And it's nice because it's fairly representative of different art. So I'm going to start with Faisal Lafia, who is a concept artist who is originally from Senegal. I think he actually lives in Senegal. Oops, I started ZBrush by mistake. That's what I'm used to do. Just wake up in the morning, start ZBrush, start 3ds Max, start Photoshop, get to work. So this is my habit. So anyway, so I'm going to start with Faisal that sent me his email. And his email says that I can mention him in the video. So, and he's going to be present for questions during live stream. So if you're here, hello, Faisal. I don't know if you're here. And okay. So Faisal, so his portfolio to me reads kind of like sci-fi, which is more of the realm that I know. So it's kind of a realm that I can actually kind of talk about. I'm going to take this image because I think it's pretty representative of the work. So it seems that Faisal uses 3D, uses 2D. The 3D elements that he uses, it seems that some of these elements come from Kit Bash, you know. By the way, I will have a presentation with Kit Bash 3D later today. And I'm going to bring this here. Okay. And I'm going to look as well at the overall portfolio, you know. Thanks for sending me the link. And here we have a little bit of everything. We have this. We have some more environment, kind of fantasy-looking environment. We have more fantasy environment. We have some character design. We have some environment design. And we have some prop design, environment design, sci-fi. Okay, and some more like, looks more like game design, environment game design. So let's start with this one. So this is a pretty cool image. The question that we have for Faisal, I don't know if he's here right now. I'm going to be seeing probably around 6 portfolios, you know, and spend some time on them. So this is a concept that works pretty well. There are some issues with the depth. There's a few issues with the perspective as well, and a few issues with composition. So I'm going to start doing a quick plane over of this, you know. So there's a discrepancy happening between kind of the perfect perspective that is here, you know. And actually, you know what? I'm going to use the perspective tools because I love those perspective, you know, that tool. So let's see what the perspective does here. Okay, here, here. Okay, and if I do this, what is the grid going to look like? So overall, the horizon is placed pretty well. You know, it seems that the horizon stayed true. So this is based on a 3D model that probably was filtered with something to make it look a little more like painting and things like that, and then was painted over. I would say that overall, the difference in style between the 3D and the painted in the foreground is kind of breaking apart a little bit. There is like a rhythm that happens here, you know, with those rocks that are perfectly aligned one after the other and things like that. And for that kind of environment, I would assume you would want to have it more natural looking. And, you know, there's nothing wrong if you do especially sci-fi for games or movies or whatever. You can use, I mean, Photoshop bashing if that's something you enjoy, you know. I like 3D, I like painting. I find it difficult to go in between the two, you know. Hi, Faisal, so it looks like you're here. So I would say that overall, there is a lack of hierarchy in brightness, you know. So I'm gonna do a quick fix, you know. Just to add a little bit to the depth to that image. It's really something that's very easy to do, you know. And it just rearranges right away the overall exposure of your image, you know. I'm going to talk a lot probably about exposure, volume, things like that, you know. So because photography is directly linked with concept art. And if you want to really understand concept art, you have to understand photography to a certain extent, you know. So what I'm doing here is that I'm reorganizing the hierarchy of that image, you know. Not only in brightness and things like that, but also in terms of depth. So this works a little better already. So now, because what happens very often is that people don't realize that light travels, you know, and light's intensity cannot be the same here. If this is number one in terms of brightness, the brightness cannot be the same on the other side of the image, you know. So what that does is that it helps refocusing the looking at your image, you know. And I don't want to be too technical with this presentation, because right now I'm doing more of a technical assessment of one image, you know. It's more complex than that, you know. But also, if you look at the materials, you know, design is about materials as well. So reframing a hierarchy is not only in the brightness, not only in the design, but it's also in materials. Materials are very left out by people when it comes to being an element of design, you know. And the reflection of the water needs to be treated really carefully in order to read as water. You know? So also the depth that's happening with those shapes in the background, those floating shapes, it's very hard to tell the distance between the various elements. So I have a question for Faisal. Yes, this video will be available to watch later. It will be present on this current YouTube website, which is Pitch Dev Studios. So as I was saying, so there is an issue. If you look closer, you know, there is an issue with the brightness of this and this. So if I look carefully, this is actually brighter than the back. I mean, it's not brighter actually, but here it is brighter than the background. Here it's not, but here it is. So this thing is supposed to recede into atmosphere. I don't know how far it is. If it's close, it's too bright. If it's far, it's too dark. So you're gonna have to make choices and decide what is the first element. No, the closest element would be pure black. You know, let's say this is a pole that's right next to us that's not affected as much by atmosphere because it's very close to us. Okay, let's say if I move that pole further in the atmosphere, you know, we'll probably live here, okay? And already it is brighter. It has the light bouncing coming from the ocean, it has the light bouncing from the sky and things like that. And then if I go, and you see this value is already very close to this one. You know, it's very similar. And that's impossible. That's physically impossible. And we are in the job of emulating reality when we do concept art for sci-fi, particularly, you know. And we want to make sure that, I mean, if that pole is all the way over there, I mean, of course we wouldn't see it, but I'm going to cheat. I'm going to make a bigger pole, you know. It would be something more like that, maybe, you know, not even. Poof. It's very hard to see. There you go, you know, more something like that. And if it was all the way over there, we would barely see it. And what that means to me is that that element is way too visible for the distance it's at. So what I would do, you know, I would fade it into the atmosphere in the back, you know. And then you may see a little bit on the top, but barely, just a kiss of it, you know. So I would say that, and this is due to many things. I mean, I would say, I don't know how many years experience. I mean, I know, Faisal, which industry do you want to get in? Hi, Valentin, nice to see you. So Faisal, if you're here, I'd like to ask you what kind of industry you would want to get in. I'm assuming it would be game or feature film or things like that. And I would say that for now, looking at the rest of your portfolio, I would say that you're still lacking kind of a compositional and a technical experience. I think you have good taste. I think you have a very good sense when it comes to design. I think this is already the proportions that you use with your kit bash in 3D is good, But I would say in terms of painting and composition and light direction and things like that, you're lacking maybe a little bit of photography experience. Maybe take a camera and go and practice outside with a camera. But I would say that in terms of exposure, okay, film. Okay, game and film. Okay, thank you, Faisal, for answering. So what I would say is what you would need is really work on practicing your exposures, and what's close, what's far, and things like that. When it comes to design, I mean, and everybody's different, Some people are better with design, some people are better with illustration and technique in general, So it really varies, And maybe what I can do, maybe I can get this to disappear a little further, even more. Into the atmosphere, here you go, boom. That works better for me too. Cool. So I would say that these are the elements I would change. Design. If you want to go into movies, what you really gotta think about is realism nowadays. It's really, realism is the key. And realism, to study realism, you have to really study images, and study what makes an image real, whether it's the atmosphere, like I just changed. The only thing I changed in your image right now is the atmosphere and the atmospheric perspective. That's really what I changed. Also, the reflection of that water kind of bothers me because the tones of it are not necessarily very reflective of what the sky would be. So you have a blue sky that, I mean, the sky, a orange sky that obviously fades into blue because it's an evening sky, So I would say there's probably like a kind of a strong intensity in the reflection, maybe a little more blue in that reflection, Because this is a mirror and it's going to be reflecting not only the sky above us, but also what is going on here, So I would say that, and of course there's going to be some highlights because the sun is over there, and the highlights will be hitting some of those splashes of water, maybe some variation in there, And I'm exaggerating a little bit. I wouldn't take something as saturated as this, But that's kind of what I would say about this image, And sometimes it's really hard because this is obviously a image painted over 3D. And there's a question if I would recommend to work in grayscale. Not necessarily. Some people do very good with that. I prefer to start directly in color. But if it does help you, you should do it. And working in grayscale first can be like a great way of not being as afraid, Here we go. Okay. So what else is there? Okay, so let's look at the whole portfolio as well. So character-wise, I would say that one of the biggest issue, and it's funny because I've noticed that issue with many artists that sent me a portfolio, is that I'm realizing that a lot of people are scared about making volumes. And if you want to work in film and video games, I mean, it's a medium that is for video games in 3D, but for film and games, you would want to work in 3D. This is the 3D environment. So you really want to have people read those volumes. And it's funny because it's really a critique that I would have for a lot of people that have seen the portfolios of this morning, is work your volumes, When I see this, right away, what I want to do is accentuate the volumes. And there's ways to do it, the way I'm going to do it here, I'm going to cheat, you know. I'm going to do just, I put the layer as a multiply, you know, and I'm going to create like shadows. And there we go. So I may not speak as much when I'm painting, of course. That should help a little bit. Okay. And I'm just going to paint shadows in, you know. In the light, like I mentioned before in the previous moment, light changes from the place where it's the hottest to the place to which it is the darkest. Whether it's through direct shadow casting, whether it's with soft shadows, all these things, you know. And this helps reading your object as a volume as opposed to just a 2D piece of art, you know. Right away here, you know, we have more of a feeling of 3D, three-dimensionality. And I haven't done much. I just created just a few shades here and there, you know. But already it's easier to read a volume. And if you want to sell a concept, because illustration is not design. Illustration is all about selling a concept. You know, we're in the job of selling an idea, you know. And if you want to sell your ideas properly, well, illustration is just a mean to an end, you know. But if your illustration is good, it means you can sell your ideas better. Some people are better illustrators, some people are better designers. I think I would consider myself always like a slightly better designer than slightly better illustrators. I know so many illustrators that are way better than me, but what I really enjoy and try to sell all the time is design. So I'm going to do another, I'm going to duplicate that image again, you know, and this time what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the exposure. You know, I usually tend to work more with exposure than with any other means like brightness, contrast, or levels, or things like that, because exposure is very clear to me. This is f-stops. You know, you can go higher and lower into your f-stops, and an f-stop is basically the amount of light that you have when you're taking a photo or filming film. And I'm going to move quick to other people as well because I'm realizing I'm spending a lot of time with Faisal, Faisal from Senegal. So I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible from now. So here we go. I'm going to do this. Okay, and now I'm going to revert that. Okay, and now I'm going to just make apparent the light areas. There you go. There you go. And I'm focusing really on where the light hits the strongest, of course, you know, which here would be probably the brim of the hat. Oops, brim of the hat. I don't want any shadow on his face because his shadow is obviously covered by the hat. Shoulders. You know, that arm is going towards us, you know. So that's kind of, I mean, this is a really simple way. I usually I wouldn't do it like this. I would probably paint, you know. But this is a great way to explain the process. And if we look at the way we were before, you know, this is the flat, this is the shaded. And honestly, I really didn't do much. I mean, I really want to be respectful and don't touch the design, you know. But what I did is really just emphasizing what is already there. And it's just to show that a design may be good. And I think all these designs are good, to be honest. They are totally valid for a production environment. But if you don't sell your idea properly, then you won't be able to sell your concept. And your concept will not be approved. And people that usually judge your concept are not necessarily good artists, you know. So they don't know what's good. You have to kind of show them what is good and what's not good by having a proper quality illustration. So I would say, you know, and if we look at sci-fi, you know, to go back to sci-fi, because Faisal talks about movies and things like that, I would say that when it comes to sci-fi, I mean, to me, I mean, I know a lot of sci-fi artists and things like that. I would say that in terms of example, one of the guys I would really recommend looking the work of is, of course, Sparse. Sparse is the art director at 343 Industry. And when it comes to proper quality design and composition and perspective and things like that, which is something I haven't mentioned. I've talked about the perspective. It seems that it's correct due to the 3D, but there's something that's when we look at the original image, there's a lack of push of those lines. There are elements that would be necessary in order to really read as perspective, and to help the viewer jump into that image. I think these elements are missing, and the way you would do that is by probably using textures. If for example, instead of those rocks to be aligned like this, for some reason those rocks aligned here kind of trouble me a little bit. So I would try to find something more natural, and they are very different color, maybe because they are wet from those ones here. So, I mean, I would really kind of like do this, but then, oh, there's one that's closer to us. And that's informing us on the fact that we are receding in perspective. This is a huge help for us to understand the depth of that image. Maybe there's like another rock, just one more over there, And when you apply all the layers, you see that it's an image that's a little easier to read now. That's all. So first of all, Faisal, I want to say thank you for sending your work. I'm going to jump to someone else, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to jump to someone else. Thank you for sending your work. There you go. For those that came in a little later, this is just the triangle of the realm of art. From stylized to abstract to realistic, and understanding where you are. Like if you want to work at Pixar, you're going to be in between stylized and live action. If you want to do modern art, you'll be full on into abstract. If you want to do stylized, which is more like comic book maybe, and things like that, you can do that. But we all live into that realm. No one lives outside of that realm. And knowing where you are located here is going to help you to decide where you want to go, whether you want to work at Pixar, whether you want to work for a game company, and things like that. So who's next? Boom. The next one is April Cooper. So April Cooper, there you go. So I looked at your work, and I would say the exact command that I was telling Faisal. And I don't know, April, if you're here, and if you want to get, you're welcome, Faisal. If you want to go into, animation, it looks like it's more animation oriented. I would say that in general, I don't know how long you've been doing art for a while. I would say that in general, you're lacking a lot of the technical bases that are necessary in order to sell your design. So, and I think the ideas are good. And that's something I'm going to explain again, which is. There are, I would say, two types of artists. There's the technical artist, and there's the more designer. To me, technical is more into the illustrative realm. And when I say illustration, I don't talk just about 2D. I talk about 3D, 2D, whatever tools, toilet brush with ink on the paper. To me, it's all the same. It's a technicality. It's a tool that we're using. Design is more like a research of like what you're trying to express with the product that you're trying to sell. And instead of design, you know what? I'm going to call it differently. I'm going to call it, what would be a proper word? Creative. So some people are more creative, some people are more technical. And that's really, I mean, it's just a personality trait, but in concept art, you really want to try to have some kind of balance, because if you're just a very technical artist, there's a lot of chances that you won't have the ability to create a design that's powerful enough in order to move the art director or the director you're working with. On the other side, if you're an artist that's too creative, you may have great idea, and I think that's the case for April here. I mean, I love that character. I love Western movies. I think there's something very powerful and feasible with this. But the issue is that your technical limitations when it comes to anatomy, when it comes to perspective, when it comes to shading, particularly, can become very difficult. And I'm not saying that you have to be an expert in perspective, an expert in technicality and things like that in order to be a great designer, but it helps tremendously. Bye, Valentin. See you later. So there's a hi, April. So April, I have a question for you. Which kind of industry would you want to be into? So there's a question, can the concept portfolio be of one theme genre? For example, mine is only nature-based, not sci-fi, not mechanical element, not environment. Yeah, just nature-based is fine, Fadi is asking. It's fine, you just have to decide what's your goal. What is the industry you want to get into? If you want to be a concept artist, or a production artist, what kind of industry do you want to fall into? Because in the end, we're in the industry, we are the hand, the tool, the paintbrush that helps creating the universe and the product. And the product has to sell. So that's a question that's still very important to ask yourself, But yeah, it can be of one theme or genre. It's totally fine. I mean, my portfolio is mostly sci-fi, that's what I would say. So the question when it comes to studying the artwork in grayscale and notice their problem, here, she said animation and storytelling. Thank you, Philip. So, okay, so for animation, if you look at artists, like Brittany Lee, who is like the designer of Frozen, of some of the characters in Frozen, you can see that here, what's very interesting, the technicality of this image is actually pretty straightforward. This is a very 2D image. We don't see perspective. She used a very flat image, in a very costume designing trend, style, I would say. But there's no perspective. But the values that she uses in the dress, in the hair, in the motion blur on the particles in the back is very, very subtle. And when you work in the animation industry, the subtlety is very important because little things, and I like to show the image because my girls are a big fan of Frozen, of course. And I like to show that image because you can see the particulates in the dress that are sparkly and things like that. My girls, I mean, they love that stuff, And as a designer, these are the things that you want to show. And the texture and the volume of the clothes that you're going to design are going to be followed through all through production. So from your sketch all the way to the final 3D render, those concepts are going to feed the machine that the animation or the film industry is about. So it's very important. And so when I look at this, I like the overall idea of the character. I just think that you're not selling the design well enough because of your technical limitations. So for example, I'm going to do just a very basic example again of what I did earlier on. I'm just going to duplicate the image. I'm going to put it as a multiply. I'm going to do a mask. I'm going to invert the mask. And I'm going to start like putting shadows everywhere, I'm not changing your design. I don't want to change your design because I think your design is totally valid, It's a cowboy. He's a pretty hardcore dude. Fights other guys. And we want to sell that, So if we focus on this one, for example, what is his skin or fur made of? What is it? Is it something that's very shiny? Is it something that's softer, you know? And these are with the airbrush, for example, you know? And these are things that you need to think about, because these are the things that are gonna sell your concept through the completion and all the way to the project, you know? It's gonna feed the project. Also, because everything is at the same level, there is a confusion happening with the surroundings, you know? And because everything is very much uh, into its own world and they're all very close to each other, it's kind of becoming confusing in order to read the design of your character. So what I'm doing right now is that I'm simplifying what's in the back, make it recede in perspective, you know, just to help read everything. That shirt, you know, that shirt has brightness, you know. How can we sell that, you know? Has folds, you know, all those things. And even if you're working in animation, nowadays, most animation is 3D, you know. But even if you're working in 2D as a painter, you need to really think about those volumes. Because selling those volumes is what's going to sell your design, you know. It's a little low res, so it's hard for me to kind of paint exactly what I'm trying to do, but hopefully I get the point across. Like, what's the volume of the eye? In order to be able to answer that question, you really need to study the shading of an eye, you know? And right away, you can get more volume, you know, out of what you're doing. And describing that volume is going to help sell your design. So, and that's something that I'm going to repeat a lot, you know. So I would say that here, the strength that you have is that I think you're very creative, you know. The one thing I would say is that you need to bring, which is what I was showing earlier on, you need to bring, so this is you actually, you know, you're very creative, but your technicalities is kind of weaker. So what I would do is that I would raise the level of your technicality in order to sell your creative creations, you know, if that's clear enough. So the question is, should our portfolio be one world? So it depends where you're at in your life as an artist. You know, I would say that if you're a young artist, you know, the most important thing if you're a young artist, in some ways you gotta somewhat, I mean, it's gonna sound harsh, but you're gonna have to rush quickly to a job in order to make money, unless money is not an issue for you, you know? So I would say, go where your intuition is, you know, let's say you feel like you're more of an animation kind of guy, go get a job in animation, because getting a job in animation is what's going to help you decide if you want to do that job for the rest of your life, you know. And also, what you're going to do, what's going to happen, is that you will realize more who you are. And by focusing just on one style, you start something, you finish it, and people are going to look at you online and they're going to say, oh, that guy wants to do that. Let's hire him for that. And once you're there, once you have your job, your company, you're working for a company and things like that, you may realize, you know what? I just hate animation. I don't want to do animation anymore. This is not a world made for me. I'm going to try something else. And then you can expand your portfolio. But once you're young, when you're junior, it's very hard to sell yourself if you have a huge amount of very different styles, because it's very hard to be good at everything. I don't think anybody can be good at everything, you know. And I worked in animation, I worked in live action, but this came over the 25 years of work I've done in my life, and so it came with time, you know. But I would say that in general, at first, focus on one style, and that style is the style of what you want to do, the job you want to get. So that's why I would say to Soroush. So I would say first focus maybe on one world, and these are very personal takes on these. You know, other people may have different values than I do, but I would say if you want to get a job, first of all, really do one world well, and then you can move to a more other complex world. You know. So that would be my. So that's what I would say for you, is I would say you're very well creative, but you need to move up your technical abilities in order to sell your designs better. That's what I would say for this portfolio. No? Volume, once again, like I told to the previous artist, volume is very important. And being able to sell depth, is extremely important. Depth and volume and texture and all these things, And here what I'm doing is I'm really just simplifying the shadows, and trying to read the volume into that character. And I'm not a character designer, really, not by a long shot. But I've done character design in the past, But right away, I mean, if you do this, you would really sell your designs better, basically. This is what we started with. And this is kind of what I'm trying to explain. Anyway, so that's it for this portfolio. And I would say this applies to the rest of your portfolio. April Cooper. So I would say just practice your technicality, and the advantage that you have that you are a very creative person, creative designers, you like to do monsters and things like that, then your skills will work even better. Your art will be even better thanks to developing your own skills. Actually, Philip, I picked the first 6 I received. So there are other questions. What am I looking for in the junior artist portfolio? I would say that the most important gift when it comes to a junior portfolio is regularity, which is how much are you able to follow a look, a style, on a very repeated manner. Meaning, for example, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This is James Simon. James, what did James say? Thank you for printing this year. I'm on last semester for my BFA, and it would be great to know what I should focus on refining post-graduation. So I would say that this is an excellent portfolio. Right away, right from the bat, I can see that James has spent a lot of time on his technique. If you want to be a creature designer, you have to understand how bodies are built, constructed. Skeletons is like an architecture, And as an artist, you are like a building, It's same with the quality of your art. You are building foundations, and your foundations, and you don't have to have them in 2D, Who cares? They can only be in 3D. It's fine too. You can build your foundations in 3D, and James is a perfect example of that. I think he's understanding that the technique and the structure behind his characters is going to come from what's inside them, from the skeletons. So you're welcome, April. Thank you so much for sending your portfolio, by the way. So starting with the foundations of your characters, which is a skeleton, makes a lot of sense. And this is, to me, the best way to start evolving as an artist, is to go from there, and then you can do this. You can get into more stylized and more fun-looking things, and this is, to me, even though this is a student that is in final year and stuff like that, I'm assuming that he would want to go either into animation or into games, and I think this is a really good portfolio. I think for character modeling, I know that you've used a lot of existing designs, So I would say that the only thing I would develop if I was you is your own designs. I would try to develop really, it's a muscle to practice. So James, if you want to answer, what industry would you want to get into? Something I'm curious about. But what I would say is that, let's say you want to go and work at Disney or any other animation studios, I would say that it's good to be a 3D modeler, and some people are fine just being 3D modelers, working from design, so like that, and it's fine. And what you're doing would maybe prove that it would be more your inkling and your interest. But I would say, I love design. you know, animated feature film. Yes, well, obviously it was either that or games, you know, but I think it's pretty obvious with your portfolio. Your understanding of volume is excellent. Your understanding of structure is excellent. I would say some people get tired of just doing assets for their whole life. Some people are fine, you know, but I love design. If you wanted to develop your design skills, it's a muscle you have to develop the same way you developed your modeling skills, which is by practicing it, you know. And maybe it's just a simple sentence that you can tell yourself. You tell yourself, okay, well, I like anatomy and things like that. So what happens if I take a frog and I mix it with a crocodile? Okay, so you want to get more into design. Okay, so then now I would say that your technique is so good, but it may be sometimes a limitation for some people because it creates a rigid frame around you. And you're gonna want, if you want to get into designs, which it seems you want, you're gonna want to break free from that structure. And to break free from that structure, you're gonna have to strengthen your design skill. And to strengthen your design skill, you're gonna have to practice it and give yourself things that are impossible to make. Give yourself difficult choices. For example, mix a frog and a crocodile. Okay, what is a crocofrog like? Or what is a crocodile like, you know? And you take that concept, you just write it on the page, and you're like, okay, now I'm gonna 3D model this. I'm gonna design and 3D model this. Some people can design right away into 3D. I think it's totally fine. Sometimes I would say it would help to do a sketch, even if it's a 2D sketch, very rough sketch, you know? And you can go from there, you know? So I would say that this would be the advice I have for you, is develop your design muscle, you know? I hope if you have one question, James, I can maybe answer it, and then I'll move to another artist. But I'd say this is a very good portfolio. The only, maybe you would want to add, but you're still a student, but you would want to add probably like another 10 of these, you know, of these designs, you know, even if it's studies, but also designs, you know. I would add 10 more so that your portfolio feels more full, you know, and less young, I would say. I would say that this one is nice, but it's not to the level of the other stuff, you know. I think this one is a good design, but I would say that the lighting is a little, it just feels very plasticky, you know, and I would, whatever lighting you've done on the other images, this is excellent lighting. This is even better lighting. This is okay lighting. This is excellent lighting. I'd keep coming back to that render because I think it's very pleasing to the eye with a nice background, a nice contrast between the foreground and the background. Here, the contrast with the foreground and the background is not as clear, so it's harder to read. This is really good too, you know. So that's what I would say. Okay, you're welcome, James. Next one. Oh, and I will say, because of the success of this stream, I mean, I'm serious. I had no idea that I was going to receive so many portfolios, you know. But because of that, I've decided I will do a few more. Don't send more portfolios. Seriously, there's plenty. I have too many. But I will probably do, I already do consulting, you know, consultations. So if you're an artist or if you're an art director, or you can contact me and I will organize the pricing around doing full feedback from 30 minutes to an hour if you need it in order to help you either with your project or with your portfolio. And I don't have a price yet. I will really adjust it to what you do. You know, if you're an art director in movie industry, I won't price it the same way that I would price it for a student, you know. But that's something I'm going to start developing. So I will do more and more of this because there's so many people that ask me to do it, and I really enjoy doing them. So here we go. So this is Lucia Abad. So Lucia, so I don't know if you're here. Okay, so there's a question. Hopefully Lucia Abad is here, and if she's not, I'll do her review quickly. So is it okay to have a portfolio that has illustration pieces and also some kind of game assets, concept, or character design, Or is it better to be even more focused in the portfolio? I'd say it depends on what you want to do, because remember one thing, and that's the best advice. If there is one advice you can remember today about these portfolio reviews, is that advice. The advice is whatever you put in your portfolio is going to be what you're going to be hired for. So if you put something that you hate to do in your portfolio, I mean, don't complain about a company calling you and asking you to do just that, because that's what you show to the world. So if you're working, for example, in a company, and this happened to me when I was younger, I was working for various companies, and I started at very low level in doing very low work. I did some scanning for projects. I did some really crappy designs and like projects that were bound to die and things like that. But I never posted on my portfolio things that I didn't like to do. So what that means is that I never posted work that I did at work because my work was so horrible and painful. So I would say that's very important to put on your portfolio the stuff you love to do, because that's what you would be hired to do. So I'm going to jump to Lucia. So Lucia, your portfolio feels still very young. You're maybe a little bit all over the place. You're still looking for yourself. It seems that you found the style towards the last few images you posted that is very bright, that is very luminous, and things like that. I would say that, and actually I think it's nice. I think that this is, for example, a very beautiful image. I think this is very successful. So I would assume, and I like the fact that you're trying to help save a species. I'm really into that. I'll be doing some streaming for expedition art on that subject. But I would say that ArtStation, sadly, and it's not ArtStation's fault, it's the industry's fault, is very industry focused, which means that what you put on ArtStation is not as much the stuff that is going to interest producers and art directors. ArtStation is very professionally oriented. So if you put those images, what you mostly probably have is jobs into book illustrations, book covers, and things like that. But if you put stuff like that, you may have more jobs in design, character design, or things like that as well, or more character design oriented, and I'm not talking about the technicality, but the subject that you are sending. These are awesome too. I like that, But just so you know, ArtStation is so technical that you may not get jobs through this, but you may get interest. Okay, but I would say that overall your portfolio is a little bit all over the place. Now this is a very different graphic style than this is, and I would say that you work hard on your volumes. You're still not there yet. There's the positive and the negative. But when it comes to when you start adding detail, it seems that you're losing a little bit depth. That's why I would say, for example, this image. It's really cool, by the way. I mean, what I would do once again here, I would re-expose that image. And I would really try to bump up the eyes, and the reflections, so that we really feel that there's a volume coming towards us and that's disappearing in the background, So just with that little change, you can say a lot, And maybe in the background, we have a little bit of blue sky, just so that your image kind of pops up a little more, So I would say just pump up your contrast a little bit so that we can read your image better, So if I see this, and so just what I just did, I turn an image that's a little flat because all the values are the same, all the exposures are the same, and then I turn it into something that has more volume, So that's what I would say. There's another question, which is, can we put some sketches and studies in our portfolio? Yes, totally fine. I would say be selective, take the best one, obviously. If you think one is crappy, well, don't take it, But I would say sketches and studies totally fine in the portfolio. What I would do, though, I mean, just to put like a little bit modification on what I just said, is I would make sure that the sketches that you're putting are all into one area, so that people don't assume that the only thing that you do when it comes to design is just those sketches. So what I would say is just make sure that if it's an ArtStation, just make like a flood, like into one folder, just of your sketches, and you say clearly you mentioned that it's studies and practice, and then in the rest, you can put the more final work, because people are going to judge you, and I'm the worst with that. On my ArtStation, I'm all over the place. My portfolio on ArtStation is horrible. I have a website which is very organized, which is why I don't use ArtStation as much. But I would say that my ArtStation is really not a good reflection of what you do. Don't do what I do. Don't do what I do. Do as I say, I guess, which is very something that parents say a lot to their kids. But I would say make sure that your portfolio is organized. Sketches are clearly labeled sketches. That final images are clearly final images, and project images and things like that. So that's the advice I would give on this. No, I'm not doing product placement. This is just a drink I really like. It's ginger drink called Zivia, no sugar. I highly advise it. End of product placement. I'm not sponsored by that company. So here we go. So that's the advice I would give to Lucia. It's 2 o'clock, but I'm going to keep going a little bit. I'm going to go with another portfolio, which is Rachel Kesrival. So Rachel Kesrival, I'm going to go to ArtStation. Boom. So this is more kind of a portfolio that's kind of in my realm, sci-fi, a lot of 3D elements, some speed painting stuff. So I would say, and this one apparently won a contest, so that's cool. It's a good image, Let's take that image and let's push it. So let's see what was the process. So he did some sketches, excellent process, some reference finding, that's really good. Reference search, that's very important for your work. And this is great. The way he laid out his portfolio, that image is really good. References, going to sketches, going to the 3D base, going to the final. That's excellent. I would say that this is a very good way of doing that image. Is Rachel here? I don't know if Rachel is here. Okay. I don't know if he's here, but I'm going to take this. Okay, this is a very nice image. I really like it. I would say that there's once again, it's very dark and a little tame, I would just pump up some of the focus, So in that type of style of illustration, of course, I would say that someone like Alex Kronstadt is the king, I would really look at his work. But I would say that what makes Alex Kronstadt work really good is that there's a really important research in volumes, in reflection, in materials. There's a richness to these images that makes it really good. Here, what we're going to do, in a very quick way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch the saturation and the brightness on this area, because this is obviously the area of focus in that image, And I'm assuming it's the area of focus of that image. I don't know the subject. I don't know, it wasn't for a competition. I don't know what it was a competition about. But what I'm doing here is that I'm really making sure that as the adventurer that's here, that just stumbled onto this really weird, scary thing, we are kind of blown away by what we're looking at, And to do that, you really have to focus and create a hierarchy of, once again, very famous thing, which is 1, 2, 3. So we have, our perspective is driven by the subject that we're looking at. So right away, I just modify the brightness, and right away, we can see the atmosphere is more driven, and the perspective is more driven to that direction. When it comes to the foreground, first of all, if this is so bright, there will be some reflections happening in there. you know, with maybe even a highlight of this, you know. Because this is so bright, you know, that you would want to see some of that. And what I'm doing, I'm just picking and color picking kind of the colors I see over there and trying to see where the horizon is. And I'm doing this quick, so it may be very wrong, you know, in perspective-wise, but it's okay, you know, just to get the point across. You know, and by adding all this, you know, I'm really exaggerating, maybe not realistic, maybe the lighting wouldn't be exactly like that in 3D, but I don't care, you know. I'm trying to express something that's more complex than just purely a 3D render here. And here, you know, there's some atmosphere, so maybe more blue atmosphere in there, you know. I'm gonna put it as lighten mode. So that this recedes more into perspective. I'm gonna erase some of it. Basically, I just added some fog here. And here, this goes to me too far into darkness again. So I would really kind of increase a little bit the fog here. So I would say that overall, that image was a little too linear in terms of exposure. It was too flat. That's my only comment that I would say on this image. Other than that, I think it's a very successful image, you know. And the process behind it is very good. So all the development that happened because of that. Also, the other thing is that in such a low exposure, I mean, this light would affect a lot more the character, you know. And by doing this now, I mean, if we look at what we had originally and what we have now, you know, we have something that's a little more moody, that's a little more readable. I mean, readability of an image is very important, you know. So that's what I would say. But great work. I say, Ruchil, very good work. Let's see for the rest of your portfolio. I would say that the rest of your portfolio, I looked at it before, is excellent. You know, here the composition is better, but I would give the same advice. You know, I would go in there, and I would maybe focus more. It's hard to tell here for me. Is this the focus, or are these guys the focus? To me, I mean, and you know, it's your choice, you know, so I can't really decide for you, you know. But I would say that to me, I like these guys a lot, you know, and I want to make people feel that the power comes from them. They are calling that gem, and it's not, or that magical spell. They are the ones calling the spell, and the spell is not calling them, you know. So I would say that this is what I would do, you know. I would readjust the hierarchy based on what you're trying to achieve and to tell the story you're trying to tell, you know. I love that blue mixing with that orange. I think it's very successful, you know. It's kind of colors I love. I use them all the time. But that blue is powerful, you know, and it should be affecting a little bit everything around, you know. Should just, because if you look at the brightness of that blue here, you know, which is really, really bright, you know, I mean, it would affect the rest of the image, you know. And maybe here, yeah, maybe I was a little strong here, you know. You can bring some of that back, you know. Also, because it's such a storm, you know, I would add even more particles that are coming in front, you know. So this is what I would do, you know. Just to have that feeling of wind that's coming, you know, and you know, I don't know if you're going to see well with the resolution, you know, but that gives you a little bit of an idea, you know. But overall, I would say that this image is very successful again, you know, good composition. I like the Dutch camera and all that stuff. It's working very well. So here you go, guys. Yeah, that's all I would say for you, Rashid. I would say make the read of your images a little better. You know, this one is very successful with that. It's pretty obvious, you know. I would punch in again, maybe. No, boom, once again. Very easy to do. And you know, it may feel a little heavy-handed, you know, but when you're trying to impress someone quickly, like an art director or whatever, sometimes the easier the image to read, the better. You know, that's what I would say. But overall, I'd say your portfolio is very stable, very there's like a cohesion. I think that's what I was trying to talk about, Ariane. There's a cohesion in your style. I think your speed painting is very good. Your virtual planner is really good. We do more of that. You understand brushes very well. Yeah, I think overall, but everywhere, I would say that your focus, uh, you know, same here, do the same thing. Sorry, it's very hard for me to stop. Once I start going, it's very hard for me to stop. And I have another presentation, so I'm going to have to escape. But that's what I would do, you know, boom, I just readjusted the exposure, you know, and now the image to me is easier to read. You know, there's more of a hierarchy. Here we go. So I hope what I did was helpful to you guys. I hope that I was polite with everybody, that I was clear. And if you have one last question, maybe you guys can go ahead. And then they'll be done for today. Okay. Well, it seems that that's it for the day. I'm going to end the stream. You can still comment underneath that stream, and I will reply as much as possible to all the questions. Yeah, and thank you very, very, very much for being here and staying with me. It was a great turnout. I was not expecting that, so thanks a lot. Bye-bye, guys, and talk to you soon.